Can Jalen Brunson win MVP? Is Mikal Bridges' shot broken? Hope not. And will Karl-Anthony Towns be an all-star? It's the Locked On Knicks Film School Bold Predictions crossover right now.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day. Whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto downloads function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And he is Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And we're joined today by maybe your, hopefully, second favorite Knicks podcasters out there after us. But we're joined by our good buddies from Knicks Film School, Jonathan Macri and Jeremy Cohen, who we convene with at least once per year. We try to more, but both of our respective shows are busy pumping out like 1 million episodes a season. So it's sometimes a little difficult to find that time to cross over, but we made the time today to go ahead and get together for our bold predictions crossover. Part 1 already came out yesterday on the Knicks Film School feed. So if you haven't already, go listen to that to hear the first 6 bold predictions, 4 from John and Jeremy, 2 from Gavin and I. And now we're going to get into the rest of those bold predictions. So I may as well not hold us any further. Let's get right into it. It is crossover time. Locked On Knicks and Knicks Film School, the 2024-25 bold predictions episode. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Knicks Film School feed and catch part number 1 of this conversation. And you will now catch parts number 2 and 3 here on Locked On Knicks. So nonstop bold predictions, 3 straight days leading you up to the regular season opener for the Knicks. I've already introduced myself in the intro. I'm Alex Wolfe. He's Gavin Schall. But we are joined by our 2 esteemed guests. Wait, no, let me do the thing. Joining me now, Jonathan Macri.
Whoa, it's like he's in the room with us.
Film School.
Hi, guys. It's great
Long
to be
time
here.
no see.
Yeah, right.
Long time no see. And joining me also, Jeremy Cohen. How you doing?
It's like I'm seeing double. I gotta. What?
You guys should go to a twin convention. That was good. Really good.
Yeah. Twinning, am I right? All right, we're off to a great start here. If you can't tell, we're already a little loopy from recording our first hour of this podcast. But let's get things on the rails immediately here. So we ended off. We structure this very strategically so that we get to lead off with Locked On Knicks predictions on this one. We ended with some Knicks Film School predictions on the last episode. I made a point to save this prediction to lead off this episode. I also sniped it from my own co-host by being the first one to just dive into the pool and say, all right, well, we got to start listing our predictions out so we don't have any doubles. So here's my first one, and I'm just doing it. Jalen Brunson wins MVP. That is prediction numero uno. And John, I'll throw it to you first. How do you feel about Brunson? Actually, no, I'm sorry. I know we should give grace to our guests, but Gavin, I'm going to throw it to you first because you had the top 5 MVP votes prediction last year. I probably should have left this one for you, but I didn't. And then you were like, man, you kind of sniped me. I'm like, well, all right, fine. So you can respond first. How do you feel about, I don't think I need to say too much on this. About
look, I'm like Tom Thibodeau. I strive to build a foundation that others can grow from, and I'm happy to see that you're going to get your moment in the light because of the hard work I put in a year ago. So congratulations, Al. No, I think it's a great bold prediction. I was ready to go and do it. He shocked the NBA last year by finishing top 5. I remember even a year ago, I almost wanted to go bolder and be like, oh, he'll win MVP or something. And I was thinking in my head, like, no, you kind of always need the year before the year. I guess Derrick Rose came out of nowhere a little bit, but generally, like, you have to get into those conversations before you can actually go ahead and do the thing, right? And now he's in those conversations. He's in those circles, a second straight playoff run where he was arguably this side of Luka Doncic, like the best high volume scorer on planet Earth, maybe including him. I think he has the respect around the league now that the Knicks go out this year and win 60 games and get the 1 seed. It's totally plausible that he can do that. He is set to have just a monster season from an efficiency standpoint, which might have been the only thing, like not that he wasn't efficient last year, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic are so efficient year after year after year, like 50, 40, 90-esque type guys. Like the bar goes up even when you're scoring 30 points a game. I think in this environment with the Knicks probably going to be 5 out with like probably the best shooting center in basketball, manning the 5 spot the entire year, like he's going to be, as Jeremy will tell you later, like really effective at the rim this year, like almost impossible to guard in the mid-range, could rack up crazy amounts of assists with all the shooting around him. So I think everything is set for an MVP type run. I still think it's really bold to say he's going to go out and win just because guys like Luka, like Shai, even Jason Tatum, like probably are more at the forefront of voters' minds than he is. And I think the bar is going to be slightly higher just because I still don't think he's regarded as like a clear-cut top 5 player in the NBA. But I think this is kind of the perfect middle ground between bold and somewhat within the realm of possibility. And that's why I was going to make it, Alex. So thanks for that. But it's a great prediction. Jeremy, what do you think, bud? Is this doable?
Doable, sure. Bold.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
You know, since the 2018-19 season, if you want to call Giannis a big, the award has been won by a big every single year. And I think the way that the league is shifting as it grows larger in the size of your average player, I think we're starting to see how important it is to be a large player to dominate. I mean, of the players that Gavin just mentioned, I think Luka, he's probably, and I don't want to speak for John, but I would imagine, the lead for MVP for him as well. 6'8", Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 6'5". There's Jokic, of course, who has won 3 of the last 4 years. And there could be fatigue like there was with the year Embiid won to an extent, although Embiid, of course, had an incredible season. Where does he fall into play with this? Embiid, is he healthy enough to win the award? It's so difficult to be a smaller player and win. It's not impossible, of course. Russell Westbrook has done it. Derrick Rose has done it. Steve Nash has done it. But the way that the league has changed is so radical. With that being said, Brunson's a better shooter than Russell Westbrook was when he won the MVP award. Same thing with Derrick Rose. It really just, my biggest concern with the MVP is it's largely narrative based. And I question whether the narrative rolls in the right way for Jalen Brunson that would break for him to win that MVP award. Whereas I think there are NBA sports writers who can't wait to anoint a new talent like Luka. And I'm sure it will be deserved, but I just feel like it's going to go to someone because it will, not necessarily because it should. And I'm sure they're deserving, but I don't think Jalen Brunson has that going for him.
I'm gonna push back on the narrative part of this award because I think the reason why this has gone to big men and is likely to go to a guy who's at the very least very big for his position this year is because this, unlike Defensive Player of the Year, which I talked about on our half of the episode, I think this is an award where it is very easy for voters to just go to some advanced stats, sort them, and say who are the guys at the top of this. And if you're a larger player, it's easier for you to have better advanced stats for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the biggest of which here is that like SGA, he's not huge, but he was big enough and sturdy enough that there was no negative association with him on the defensive end. He was good for 2.3 final total for defensive box plus minus last year, according to Basketball Reference. Jalen Brunson was on minus 0.4. And I think the reason why for me this is an incredibly bold prediction is that Jalen Brunson is going to have to get over the hurdle of, unlike everybody else, with the exception of Doncic, who will be competing for this award, is going to have to get over the hurdle of he's a minus on defense. The way Doncic gets over that hurdle is by averaging a 30-point triple-double and having, double as many crazy step-back three-pointers in any place as anybody in the league and having a 40-plus usage rate and all of that stuff. I just don't think Brunson can get to those Doncic levels of offense to overcome and I guess now I'm agreeing with you, Jeremy, the defensive narrative part that is going to have some statistical basing. The only thing I will say to give a little glass half full, Alex, is history says you have to be at least 25-1 to start the season to win this. The longest odds of any winner on record is Derrick Rose. He was 25-1 before the season started. There aren't that many players under that. I'll just read them off going in descending. It's Wemby, Brunson, Tatum, Edwards, Giannis, SGA, Jokic. I don't think they're giving Jokic 3 and 4 years. I also don't think if Tatum wasn't going to win it last year, I don't think he's ever going to win it. And I don't think Wemby is close enough to being on a good team yet. So really, if you're like, all right, well, it's him versus like 3 or 4 other guys, I could see him ending up third, maybe even second. I think that's going to be it's going to be tough to get over that hurdle.
Hey guys, we want to remind you that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. There's a lot that scares me. I'm sometimes a very fear-based person. You might be scared by something as relatively innocuous as Mikal Bridges fixing his jumper and that sabotaging the entire Knicks season. Hint, hint, for what we're going to talk about next on the show. You might be scared of something more real, like fear of failure, maybe just being anxious in general. Regardless, therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Trust me, I've been there. If you're thinking about starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Yeah, I think from a narrative perspective, I think that has started to turn with the Knicks as far as like the national media and stuff goes, and that actually plays heavily into why I think he could win it this year. I think we're starting to see national writers, national pundits that traditionally would be the people that we would look at as Knicks fans and Knicks content creators and be like, oh my God, will you shut up? You're not the voice of the fan base, or, you clearly don't watch the team, or this, that, the other. All these people are coming out in strong support. And I do think that matters. Like, I think that the Kendrick Perkinses of the world, like loud voices on national platforms that are talking about Jalen Brunson already and talking about the Knicks already as this potential powerhouse this year. Now, granted, this sets them up extra heavy to potentially fail. So like if the Knicks end up like the 5 seed or something, there's zero chance that Brunson wins the MVP this year. Whereas, I mean, like from a Wemby perspective, if they're like the 6 seed or something somehow this year with Chris Paul and Wemby, maybe he does end up winning the award, because they'll just be like, he was such a singular talent that he dragged this like 20-win team from last year into the playoffs with just the addition of like Chris Paul. And that would be sort of the Russell Westbrook argument, of like singular talent is so good that they drag a team that wouldn't otherwise be there to the playoffs. But for
Alex,
Brunson,
maybe it's as simple as 30 points a game and a 1 seed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think even 30 points per game and giving Boston a tough run, but ultimately ending up the 2 seed, I think is even enough. Like
maybe
I think that would be fine. I think as long as they're in the upper crust of the league and they're, they look like a team that really has championship aspirations, I think Brunson has a shot here, because I think that everybody's just going to kind of acknowledge, like, in that instance, let's say that they finish like 4 games lower than Boston in the standings or something to be the 2 seed. People are just going to acknowledge, like, well, Boston's the defending champs. They're stacked. Like, yeah, we knew all this already, but we didn't know that the Knicks had it in them to step up a level and start actually contending with these guys. And that has a lot to do with Jalen Brunson averaging 30 points or whatever. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
To push back on my own point, 2 very quick things. One, he does get the benefit of he's not a complete pushover on defense. As long as he gets to that point, I think that's going to be enough for voters. And then the other thing, and this would not be great for the Knicks, but if the on-off numbers are catastrophically different when Brunson is off the floor versus when he's on, that I think that might be able to counter some more individual based advanced, like your Vorps and to quote Zach Lowe, your Vorps and Schnorps and things of that nature.
Which to be fair to Brunson, the on-offs were pretty laughably in his favor.
Oh yeah, no,
last year. Like they were like 12 points better per 100 with him on the floor versus not. So, and that,
but Jokic is like 24.
Yeah,
points better.
Yeah. So it'll have to reach maybe like 20 points range, which maybe where the bench is at right now, maybe that does happen. I guess we'll see. But Gavin, do you want to make your first bold prediction of this Locked On Knicks portion of the crossover?
Yeah, you went as positive as possible. I will go as negative as possible. I'm getting this one out of the way early so I can come around and end on a high. I think that Mikal Bridges, unfortunately, this hitch in his shot that I think we all want to think is a fever dream and is just going to resolve as soon as the Knicks walk out there tomorrow against the Boston Celtics. I think, unfortunately, it is going to be a theme through at least like a substantial portion of the season. I think a lot of times when we've seen players like kind of develop hitches out of nowhere, like it is a process to fix. It is very difficult to fix it under the stress of playing real games, shooting threes at high volumes against great teams. So I'm going to say, and you guys feel free to push me on this. Maybe I'm going a little too high on the percentage because he has shot this poorly in his NBA career. I'm going to say that he shoots under 34% from three for the first time since his rookie year. Despite the fact that he's playing in arguably, and he played on some great offenses in the Suns, some really well-designed offenses on the Suns. I'm going to say this is the most talent he's ever been around. I'm going to say this is the best offensive context of his career. I'm going to say he's probably going to get the best quality of shots of his career. And I'm going to say at least early on this season, it's not going to matter because this seems like a substantial issue. I'm not a shot doctor by any means, John. I wish you could hit a Batman signal in your office, and get DJ and Benji on to break this down for us. And I know Benji was not that concerned until the last game. He's now 2 for 19 after going, 0 for 9, 0 for 10 the other night from three this preseason. Yeah, which is obviously not good. And you watch his shot versus past years, like the energy transfer is just not there. It's going further back on his head, and it's just kind of become a static set point where he has all this momentum from his dip, and then it gets there, and then all that momentum dies, and he was short every single time. I have no idea how simple of an adjustment this is. I really don't know how plausible it is to get that fixed quickly. And he had a quote yesterday that really turned off my alarm meter to James Edwards, who was just on the KFS pod, where he said, yeah, I've been trying to get back to my college form since I've been in the NBA. He had a hitch his second year. He fixed that, but he's not been happy with the way he shot his whole career, which is stunning to me because he's been one of the best shooters on planet Earth. And I think he's always had a fluid, beautiful looking shot that's super hard to block. Maybe not Kevin Durant-esque, but he's tall and he shoots it high. I don't know why he's been messing with it, but my concern meter is up. John, I'm gonna throw it to you this time. Where are you at on the concern scale there?
Yeah, I mean last year among high volume 3-point shooters in the league, nobody shot below 35%. The year before that, we had a couple of guys, Julius Randle being one of them. Yes. He was at 34.3. Fred VanVleet, 34.2. Luka Doncic actually 34.2 2 years ago, but the degree of difficulty kind of takes him into a different conversation. And Terry Rozier was at 32.7. So it's not like, it's unheard of for a guy to put up 7-8 3-point attempts a game and go an entire season and be around 33%. I listened to the soundbite too. I listened to it a few times because I'm transcribing it for the newsletter. And my bigger takeaway from that was not as much what he said about the hitch he developed in his second year, and he's been just fighting to get back to his college form ever since.
Okay, but more, I guess, was it the concern in his voice when he was?
It was the concern in his voice, and you could hear it, and it was obvious. And the fact that he used the words like just either figuring out or figure out or something like this is a thing. The reason why I think it's a bold prediction and why I am going to push back on it is it's an 82-game season, and I could see this being an issue for a few weeks, maybe even a little bit longer than that. Ultimately, this guy is too A, talented, and B, hard of a worker for me to think that this is going to last for an entire season. And I think even, I understand, the 0 for 10 is fresh in all of our minds. I got to think that even if he hovers in the low 30s for a while, at some point it will rebound. So I think it's bold. I'm going to disagree with it, but I get why you're making it for sure.
Jeremy, how do you
what do you
feel?
think?
What's your concern level?
I'd say I am concerned, and as John mentioned, it was hearing the soundbite and the kind of it wasn't like a tremor in his voice, but you could tell that there's he's just genuinely mystified about and he's lost kind of in terms of searching for it. So I'm with you, Gavin. I don't quite understand why it was being tinkered with, but I mean, we're in the position we're in. I think he'll start slow, just given 2 for 19 stretch. It's plausible to see why the first 5, 10, 15 games those numbers might not look too great, but to John's point, it's a long season. I think it stabilizes. It takes time to get there. Also how much of this is being on a new team, the expectations, getting back to a winning environment and having to mesh. Of course, Mikal Bridges has comfort with Jalen Brunson and he has comfort with Josh Hart. So I expect there to be easier transition than in other circumstances. But even still, I'm confident that with the work ethic, with the release point, with the staff that the Knicks have to help with him shooting, I think he'll eventually get there. So understand the pessimism or the cynicism, I should say. But I think it's bold because I do believe he shoots above league averages.
Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And here's the best news. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. May I suggest, if you want to be bold and predict things just like me, you can go on FanDuel right now and place a $5 bet on Jalen Brunson for MVP. And it is plus 1,200 odds. And I'm figuring out live how much I'd win you. That would win you $60. So if I'm right and you get your $200 in bonus credit, you might be able to turn $5 into $265. That would be pretty crazy. I can't say for certain if that's happening. I'm not an expert. These are not what's the thing that stock people always have to say? This is not financial advice. Me saying what I think is a good idea. But anyway, go to FanDuel.com. You can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com.
I think maybe the best point was made on Twitter. It was either Popper or James Edwards. I think it was James Edwards who said his takeaway was that Mikal admitted this has been something he has been tinkering with every year in the league since the second year.
Yeah.
Every year in the league since the second year, he's shot at least 36%. So, like, if you're looking for a silver lining, maybe that's a silver lining. But at the same time, I see the video, and obviously it doesn't look great. So,
I think I'm coming in somewhat low, but I'm also the eternal optimist. I think I'm sort of at a point where I'm like, I understand that the preseason shooting numbers were not good. I just went and looked. It was 10.5% for Mikal throughout the preseason, which is just horrendous. But do we also think the Cat's going to shoot 17% from three because of how he shot during preseason?
But his shot looks okay. That's right. I think the difference.
Right. Which I get that aspect of it, but ultimately I think I kind of fall where you do, John, but maybe a little more aggressively optimistic in like these guys are pros. Like, and he's been a great shooter his entire career. I don't think that heading into the most important year of his career that he is going to nuke everything so hard that he can't recover it. And maybe the concern in his voice, I can see where that raises some alarms and stuff like that. But, we just talked on the last episode about how Josh Hart was talking with concern about his role in this, that, the other. And, he's not feeling right. And he's not feeling like these are things that players say a lot when they're in a pressure cooker of a situation, playing with new people, not playing to the level that they want. And I think the fact that this team and all the guys on it hold themselves to such high standards is part of why the Knicks went and got all of them, because these things mean something to them. And, it's not like Mikal is not going to look at shooting 10% from three in preseason and having a hitch in a shot and be like, well, I'll figure it out. He's going to be like concerned and want to really address it and put up a million practice jumpers and everything else. And I think he'll get there. I just don't, maybe this is naivete on my part, but I just don't know how you could go from being a guy that shoots as well as he has in the past and then just sort of completely nuke it to the point where it's unrecoverable in one off season. I know that we've seen other players do that to a degree, but usually they're much younger. Like he's not Markelle Fultz. Like he's not going to just.
There's also a physical issue there, which we presumably there isn't with Mikal. So
right, exactly. So I feel all right with it. I'm not raising too many alarms, but I think we sort of were on a scale here, and I'll be all the way at the top of the optimism. I guess.
I'm going to throw this out there real quick before we move on. I made that prediction in part to get a free therapy session, and you guys just gave it to me. So thank you. I appreciate it, Alex. I'll let you go ahead.
Shout out to channel sponsor BetterHelp.
Yeah, there we go.
Licensed Nick therapists. Anyway, John, what's your next prediction and your final?
My final prediction, as it were. Yeah. So I thought about this for a while. I didn't just thought about going couple different directions. Didn't want to step too much on stuff I've already talked about a lot. I don't know how bold this is. So I'll leave that for you guys to decide. I think Karl-Anthony Towns makes the All-Star team this year. And I will say this is largely driven by two things. One, I think the Knicks are going to be very good, despite all the concerns that we may have at the moment. And I think Karl is going to get up a lot of shots this year. So I was looking at just the preseason statistics, which, again, take it with many, many grains of salt. But if you combine field goal attempts and free throw attempts, there was only one player in the league that put up more than Cat's 21.8. I think it's like 14 field goal attempts and like 7 point something free throw attempts, and it's Giannis at 24 even. And Giannis only played 2 games. Cat played 4 games. He has, I think, if you look at the last 2 years, the second leading scorer on the Knicks in each of those 2 years has averaged 24 points a game. I would put that as the floor for Towns. I think he's going to average at least that many. And I just looking at him in this offense and how many good looks he has come by, and also how many good looks he has gotten his teammates. So if you're looking for him to be able to put together, a Randall-esque 25, 10 and 5 or something, I think that path is there. And then if you factor in the efficiency, if you factor in how, again, the team figures to do, and the reason I think it's bold is just because, like, there's only 12 of these spots, and I understand you usually get an injury replacement or two. Who knows if that's going to be the case this year? We simply just don't know. So I'll leave it for you guys to say, do you think this is bold? And and also, do you agree with it?
Yeah, I think it's only maybe lightly bold, but I totally agree with it. I think he's going to have a monster season. We have seen, I think, as the year goes along, the offense will get more intricate. We'll have more specific actions. I think, in particular, maybe because of some of the shooting issues I just mentioned, Tom Thibodeau will feel a need to run actions for Mikal Bridges, but early on, it's pretty clear that, like, this is the Jalen Brunson show, and when it's not the Jalen Brunson show, it's Karl-Anthony Towns shooting a 3 or barreling downhill, right? Like, I don't think Tom Thibodeau is going to overcomplicate this thing. You have near 5-out spacing. If we go back to our first episode prediction, you might have legit 5-out spacing if Deuce McBride is the starter at some point early in the season. I think it's key that Mitchell Robinson, regardless of our 3 predictions on it, like, likely is not going to play a ton before the year starts. So you're pretty much just going to get Karl-Anthony Towns at center. Where he is just a completely different offensive player. Like, when he has played center, he has been one of the 5 to 10 best offensive players on planet Earth. And there's really just not a lot of debate about it. And I think there is maybe it's the freedom of getting to do that for the first time in 3 years. Maybe it's coming back home. There is, like, a clear, like, earnest effort for him to make an impact. And I don't mean that in the sense he's going to hog the ball and take bad shots. I just saw the way, like, that last game against the Wizards, like, he is, like, urgently crashing on the offensive glass to clean stuff up. Like I think he's going to find easy baskets this year. He's going to shoot a bunch of open threes. And he is, again, an innate ability to take most centers off the dribble. And we have seen him exercise that consistently in the preseason. He's going to shoot a bunch of free throws. He's going to get dunks. I'm with you. I could see super efficient 25 and 12 from him. And that is 100% an all-star, particularly in the Eastern Conference where no Kristaps Porzingis to compete with. Joel Embiid is saying he's not going to play back-to-backs anymore, which he should make the all-star team just on voting. But my point is there's just not a ton of quality competition at the center spot. So I think you're going to be right.
On the board's point, 15.5 rebounds for Cat per 36 minutes in the preseason. Yeah. Again, it's preseason. But
I'm just going to, I'll say, I think this is like, I've been using pepper scales. This is like maybe a jalapeno. This is
maybe a jalapeno. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, this is bordering on bell pepper.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Put me down. It's fine.
Well, so we went over this in the first part of this show, right? Where one of my predictions last year was that both Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle make the All-Star team, and Brunson is the only one that makes an All-NBA, and that maybe wouldn't have been. There was a real chance, I think, that they both made All-NBA last year if Randle stayed healthy. But I kind of think, so I think what's going to happen this year. Jalen Brunson is going to be a starter this year, as he should have been last year.
Agreed.
And hopefully, I'll put the call out right now. Like, Knicks fans need to do a little better at voting on these things and getting him high up in the standings. I don't know what it is about our city that we're crazy, crazy passionate about basketball and about the Knicks. And then it comes time to vote for All-Star and we're like too cool for it. But vote for Jalen Brunson more. Use the force of one of the biggest cities in the country to make it happen. I know some of that has to happen at a national level too, and guys have to catch on that way, but I think Brunson's on his way there. But the two All-Star thing I don't think is spicy. Like, I think as long as the Knicks are tracking to be like a top 2 seed again, why wouldn't they have 2 All-Stars? If Cat is putting up like 24, 12, and 4 or something like that, like putting up basically his career numbers, like, but on the good end, and on a really, really good team and in the biggest market in the country, and with all those expectations, as long as they're meeting those expectations, I think it's almost a shoo-in. And
wow,
like, so,
okay,
yeah, I don't think that there's enough competition, like among other bigs, to Gavin's point, in this conference.
And it is positional still for All-Star. That's not for All-NBA. It is for All-Star.
Right. And it's like, well, but like the bench is technically positionless, but the coaches still definitely vote.
Is it?
I believe it is.
Oh, I thought there was 2 utilities, but that there's still 5. Isn't it 2? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was still 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center, or maybe 3 bigs or 2. I don't know. I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's a good thing to know. But I was under the impression it was kind of just like whoever gets the most votes gets on the bench at this point. Either way, I still think that the coaches try to kind of keep it leveled out. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Have some bigs get some rub and have some, guards and wings and all that stuff. So
2 guards, 3 front court, 2 players, regardless of position. So between the 3 front court and the 2 players, regardless of position, if the coaches want to vote him in, they'll vote him in.
He's probably got a good shot. So yeah, I'm going like jalapeno,
man.
Fresh picked, seeded jalapeno.
To defend myself, I guess I was thinking, like, if there's doubt about who the Knicks' second best / most important player is as we get further into the season, then like someone doesn't get in. In addition to the fact that, again, there's like, if you look at like really good players, or at least players who could put up big stats on bad teams, like Cade, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young, even like, someone from Chicago or something, like Levine comes back and puts up, 25 a game. Like, again, all it takes is 1 or 2 of those guys to make it, to really make things tough to, which of the top 8 teams is getting 2 All-Stars, like something like that. But yeah. I hear you. I totally hear you.
Yeah. I think, I'll throw it to Jeremy. I'll stop talking because I've been talking too long on this. Jeremy, where do you fall? Where do you think John's take falls on the pepper scale here?
Well, John and I had a podcast before where the over-under for All-Stars wasn't 1.5, John?
Yes, I took the over, right?
Yeah, and I took it as well. So to me, him making the All-Star team would be not very bold based on where I'm at the very least. I understand it. And also, there's the injury factor that could come into play. You never know.
Yeah.
But yes, if the Knicks are that good, they'll be deserving of a second player. Of course, other teams could say the same. But if we're predicting the Knicks to be a top 3 seed, and if we're expecting that to be by the All-Star break as well, then I think they're very much deserving of it. And it still goes to that point of perhaps, even if he doesn't get in on the first try, is there an injury replacement that still gets him there? I think it does benefit the league to have stars in its largest markets in the All-Star game as well. Again, not to say it's taking away from other players who are deserving, but there's always going to be someone who feels snubbed, someone who should have gotten in and didn't. And at this point, I feel like for Cat, assuming health, he should be in.
All right, guys, that is it for part 2 of the Knicks Film School Locked On Knicks annual bowl predictions crossover. Again, if you missed, probably it's really early here. Part 1, be sure to check it out on the Knicks Film School feed. But maybe even a little more importantly for our pockets, be sure to check out part 3 where we continue. I get even bolder. So does Alex. He's a crazy one this episode. John and Jeremy very politely tell us we're idiots, and it's a lot of fun. So be sure to tune into part 3 coming out a little bit. I guess. Shoot, I should have probably got that right before. We're going to put it out Tuesday morning, right?
Yeah, so it's Monday, Tuesday. So like
Monday, Tuesday.
Keep an eye out tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to start mid-sentence there. 3, 2, 1. So be sure to tune in Tuesday morning where we get going with the Knicks Film School guys one more time, and then enjoy Knicks Celtics. We will have the recap for you tonight right after the game when the Knicks make their season debut, hopefully featuring Mikal Bridges making a lot of threes and making my prediction this episode look really dumb. Until then, he's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Knicks. Nope.